And we're going to turn right around and invite our next panel. So let me do my introduction for your moderator. We have tied up with Rebecca recently. She recently did a training seminar for some of our clients, and what we discovered was that she was really wonderful at articulating complicated financial concepts in a way that everybody, no matter how much financial knowledge you have, could really understand and track with the direction that she was going. So we really appreciated that. And she actually does run Office Heads Financial Management, which is a company that specializes in helping small and medium-sized companies with all of their financial strategic needs, and is developing some cool sort of packaged components to her service model. So with no further ado, she has a great panel coming with her, so we'll get everybody up. Ladies, join us.
Thank you. Thank you very much. This is my favorite thing, getting to talk about numbers and finance. And what Office Heads does, we provide financial management and strategic coaching for solopreneurs, small staffed offices, 1 to 10 person offices. So we live in the numbers, and then we tie the story that the numbers tell into the goals that our business owners are trying to accomplish, whether it's growing or their next hire, moving out of co-working space into their own space, whatever it might be. We look at the numbers, read the tea leaves, and help them to make their decisions. So Office Heads started in 2008. And I am the queen of bootstrapping. So I'm like, okay, I have $800 in my pocket. I'm going to start a business. And we have grown. We've tripled in size, all on that $800. So I am very honored to be the moderator of this panel with a number of people who specialize in lending and lending in different ways. So it's very exciting for me. Also, we have an entrepreneur here to share her experiences on what it was like to go through various different rounds of funding, and the WBDC that's here to talk about education and learning in all of these areas. So before we go through all of our questions, the microphone is back here. If we could quickly go down the line and introduce yourselves and explain your expertise and why you're sitting on this panel.
Hi, thank you for inviting us out. My name is Janice Lopez. I am the director of the Women's Business Center at the Women's Business Development Center. So basically what we do is we provide technical assistance, counseling training to women looking to start or expand their business. Within the organization, we also have an access to capital component where we do direct lending, and we also help those individuals where they may not fall into our lending program, but try to assist them in loan packaging and gaining access to capital with financial institutions and other resources.
Hi, my name is Linda Mallers. I'm the founder and CEO of FarmLogix. We're Evanston-based, but we're a national technology platform that does farm-to-plate for large institutions that want to do the right thing, but it's difficult and complex. So we're the farm-to-plate solution for Chicago Public Schools and O'Hare Airport here in Chicago, and then we have operations down the East Coast and in Texas right now. So.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Jolie Horn, and I manage community banking for Wintrust Bank. And up in Wilmette, we're also called North Shore Community Bank. And we are responsible for all of the consumer and small business lending and SBA lending for the bank. So I've been lending to small businesses for about 20 years, on and off, and I've also been a business owner in the past.
Last but not least, I guess I'm sitting here because I'm the angel of the group, but not really, not in real life. My former life, I was executive vice president for Albertsons, Fortune 36 food company, and after we sold the company and split it, that gave me the opportunity then to concentrate on like stage 2 of my life, which I decided I wanted to spend concentrating on women and kids. And to that end, I wanted to help women invest and look at companies, and I also wanted to help kids get a leg up. So I'm also board chair of Big Brothers Big Sisters in Chicago Metro.
Thank you. I'm going to walk you through the path of, so we've already talked about launching, and then we talked about growing. So now we're talking about funding. And so when time comes where you decide, okay, I need some money to grow. I can't just do this from what's in my pocket or, from regular cash flow. So what I'm going to walk us through, and I think it's a wonderful position we're in with the panel that we have, that everybody has a particular lens in which they can speak. So we're going to walk through, okay, I think I'm ready. I think I need money. What do I need to know? How do I prep myself and my product or my service? Next, we're going to go after that, the preparation before you go in for the ask. What do you need to do to be fully prepared when you go in and ask for the funding that you require? We're going to talk a little bit about the lender, the types of programs available, and then lastly, the relationship that you have with your lender once you get the funds. So we're going to start with the person and the product, like who you are, what your product is, are you ready, and really do you need funding? So I would like to ask Linda, as the entrepreneur, to start with her experience on, well, and I understand she's in her 4th round of funding, so the first time, the second time, the third time, when you know you needed the funding.
It's kind of a funny story. We're going for our first round of VC funding right now. But 2 years ago, I was packing produce boxes in my kitchen and selling them to friends and neighbors. So it's been a wild, crazy ride. It's not my first business. I've been in technology for 20 years. Just that backstory is important. And what Linda said is, what you said about it being a boys' world, I've watched this industry evolve, and that's the one piece that hasn't changed. I sit in rooms with men all the time. I was just in a meeting in Houston, Texas, and I told a really bad off-color joke, and the guy looked at me like this, and I said, I'm really sorry. I sit with you guys so much, sometimes I forget I am a woman. Yeah, that's the way it is. But I think there's some cool things happening in tech right now. I have a son that just came out of the starter school, took a Ruby's class, has an app, and launched his own little company, which is really cool to see. He's at 1871. But basically, so when I started out doing that, I left a job, and I borrowed $50,000 from a friend. And that was my first round of funding. I did my first pitch for some more angel money to Terry, sitting right here in the corner. She was very patient and kind, and I was shaking like a leaf. But the second round actually came from our industry. We work with a lot of distributors, so some distributors came together and kicked in a little more. And then the third round was actually somebody here in town that heard what we were doing and really liked it. So he was a true angel in that he just really liked our model. And so now we're going for that more 7-figure investment. What I can just say briefly about that is that I'm so glad we did it in the stages that we did, because the investment that, if we had gotten that big investment from the beginning, I would probably own 10% of my company, and now that figure, I can basically retain much more ownership by staging it, by doing it over stages. So by doing it over 2 years and seeing what the potential is, when people come in now, they get less of the pie, which that's what you want.
And that ties into what we heard earlier in the day, which is to stair-step it. You make a change, and then you pause, and you kind of get used to things. And in my company as well, things change all of the time. You think you've got it down, and I finally got it, I'm on a groove. It's like we're even raising children, right? Like, now I'm through the easy time, and boom, 2 weeks later, it gets hard again. So you can never really rely on regular, and everything changes. And so this is a good way to also, with the funding, to stair-step it as well.
Yeah, and I don't know about you all, but everybody says to have a business plan, and all my instincts said no, don't, because I didn't know who we were. I mean, we don't sell produce boxes to individuals anymore. And so literally we did a presentation this afternoon to a VC firm with our model, where it was the first time I looked at our model like, I really like it. It reflects who we are, we know where we're going, but it's taken 2 years.
Janice, you want to speak to education and the preparation to be able to be prepared for funding?
Sure. So what we tend to do is we do walk the clients through developing their business plan. And we want to be sure that they've made the necessary research to identify, is there really a need for their market? But more so when we're looking at when I look at the business plan, my colleague may disagree with me, I look at the finances, right? So I want to make sure that when you're looking and getting ready, you actually know what your budget looks like. We have a lot of clients that are not sure exactly how much they're looking for in funding. And so then one of the things that we do prepare them with is identifying what that budget is going to look like, identifying what their revenue streams are going to look like, and then also identifying other ways of financing their business, right? So the first thing is, how much are you investing in your business? And then looking at friends and family. And then we talk about everything else that's here available on the panel. So I think we really we go through each step and just making sure that they understand what they're getting themselves into first and foremost. And then the next thing is preparing them to be ready to ask for that money. So we walk them step by step. I won't go any further because I know we're going to talk about that in a few minutes.
Well, that's great. Let's pass down the microphone and talk about that preparation, because I think gone are the days of just saying, hey, I've got a great idea, and you meet someone over coffee. I don't even know if that ever was a day. You meet someone over coffee and say, hey, can I have some money because this is what I want to do. I think it's asking for money has become more difficult with a lot more competition out there. So other than I have a business plan and I have a financial model and a marketing plan that works, what other areas of preparation are you looking for when you're considering an investment?
Okay. So when you come to a bank, we also are going to look at a business plan and the pro forma, but we also want to see tax returns. We are going to ask you to fill out a personal financial statement. And these are things that you can prepare ahead of time. One of my also really big suggestions to anybody who is going to be looking at financing is pull your credit report before you walk into the bank. Look at your credit report, make sure that there aren't any mistakes on it, make sure that there isn't anything that needs to get fixed, because that's a lot easier to do before you get into the bank and before the bank pulls your credit report. So those are some really big items, but those are things that you're going to need to continue doing, so it's good to have those on hand all the time.
Kathy, do you want to give your perspective from angel investment on other things that you might be looking for?
Okay, sure. Me personally, when I look at a person who comes to me for money, and believe it or not, quite a few people do come, I invest in things that I know about, because there's many opportunities that angels generally have to use their money on, and when we're looking at investing in a single individual startup, it's very high risk. So I tend to go with space that I know, which for me is food primarily, because I spent 38 years in food. And I look at, is your product disruptive to the area that you're trying to put it into? Meaning that if we're going to do yet another chocolate chip cookie, why is it different? And I don't mean to marginalize your chocolate chip cookie, but it's going to have to be something that can shake up the industry. So I will give you a quick example of, that's probably actually my phone. Has anybody in the room heard of Happy Baby? The company Happy Baby, they sell organic baby food. Okay. Shazi came to me early on. This is a company that she started, and she wanted to be disruptive in the baby food space. She wanted to change the way baby food was delivered to people and what it consisted of. I used to be a baby food buyer way back when at Jewel, and then I spent so much time in food, so I really knew that space well. So when she came to me, they already had some sales going. Now, many times when people come to me, they have no sales yet. She happened to have $2 million in sales, which for a lot of people is a huge company. But she was able to show me why what she was doing was going to be disruptive. She also had a business plan. And I know that you said you didn't know about a business plan. For me personally, I'm not suggesting that you have a business plan that looks like it came out of Northwestern or Harvard, but I'm suggesting that you at least have put some thought into kind of where you're going and what you want to be doing. So she did. She had it all laid out. She had a 5-year plan. She was very good, because one of the most important things is when you get the angel investor, if you're good enough, you're getting my network. And so it's not just me you're pitching. And so I would suggest to you, depending on who you're asking for cash, you want to think about, Am I doing a good enough job so that they feel good enough about you that they'll share with your product with other people? For Shazi, I was able to raise $350,000 at a dinner at my house like 3 weeks later. So for her, it worked out great, and for me, it worked out great because she was very true to form when she said, if you put in this, we're going to return you this, hopefully by the end of 5 years. So that's kind of I don't want to go on and on and on, but that's an example of kind of what I would be looking for.
Well, could you add just a little bit more about what being prepared about what you're willing to give in return of ask? It's not just a one way. With the angels, it's not just a one way. Please give me money. It's what you're willing to give as well.
Right. Okay. 2 things on this. You could have the best product, idea, whatever in the world, but if you're not we're looking at you as a leader and as a manager. We're looking at you. We're betting on you. More than your product, actually, because you've got to get it through the pipeline. You've got to do it. I've turned down some people altogether because I didn't think they were ready. They were too scattered. They couldn't articulate what they wanted. Now, in return, I give, usually what happens is they're going to ask me for some level of cash. That's another important point. Know what you're asking for. Know the minimum that you want, right? You have to figure this all out ahead of time, like how much you're going to need, what's the minimum you're able to take. So do you want 1,000 people giving you $20,000, or do you want 10 people giving you, $100,000? I mean, you've got to know these kinds of things going in. And I know this is a lot to think about, but what I'm going to give you back is my area of expertise. So I'm going to either ask to be an advisor or on your board. I'm going to ask for how am I getting out of this? What's in it for me? So am I getting a high rate of return? Am I getting ownership? Am I getting stock? Are we selling the company in 5 years? Am I getting paid out? What's the multiple? What's the multiple in the space? Meaning, are you going to take a multiple of revenue because you probably won't have a lot of earnings, bottom line earnings? So I think those are things to think about because you're asking me to take a huge risk. So I'm going to want some things in return for the risk that I'm going to do, but I'm going to help you. And like with me, I'm going to introduce you to my network. If I think if you're good enough, I'm going to introduce you to my network. Does that help?
Yes, thank you very much. From an institutional perspective, Jolie, can you want to give some examples of good presentations and good packages, and perhaps some people that could have given a little bit more when they come in and ask for a loan?
Sure. I think that one of the problems that I'll start with the issues that we have is when somebody comes in and they're not organized, and we give them a checklist of things to bring in, and they send it to us in 10 different emails over a couple week period of time and things like that. It's very difficult for us to put a file together, especially when we've got we're working on a lot of files. So when you're talking to your banker and when you're presenting yourself, you want to have all of your documents together. So when they give you a checklist, get everything together on the checklist as best you can and get it back to them. And things like that, it seems simple, but it will make the process go so much faster. Because I hear complaints because I talk to people after they've had a bad experience in another bank, or they get frustrated with the process, and pretty much everybody who's gotten frustrated with the process has not gotten a complete package to their lender. They've piecemealed it in. And so it's difficult to know what's missing then. And so that's one piece of advice I can give.
Okay, so Linda, what about preparation? So we know, Linda, that you did a business plan, not so much, but what about other things that you did that made up in other ways?
Yeah, I mean, we made a lot of presentations, and I guess saying, yes, we didn't do like a business plan in an Excel format, but we've always had a very, very detailed PowerPoint and many iterations of them about our model. I think the reason why we didn't do a business plan is we are extremely disruptive. We're the first ones in our industry doing this. And so nobody's done this before. There was no model for us to look at. So really what the problem was is when we said we didn't know who we are is how do we price ourselves? And that's been our biggest challenge. How do we price ourselves, and how big can this be? And I've had a mentor since the beginning who has always told me, when you butt heads with a potential customer, they're too small for you, go higher, and that's been the best piece of advice I have gotten. And so, just keeping flexible, I guess, is what we needed to do. And I'm really grateful that we did. So we probably have 52 iterations of this PowerPoint, and I've kept them all. But I think that if you can tell your story in a compelling way, then going back and putting the numbers in is a heck of a lot easier than starting with the numbers and telling the story later. So I think put your passion behind your idea and tell a really great story. And then you can always outsource with the Northwestern student who I'm working with right now, a Kellogg student, to help you put the numbers behind it.
I love the word passion, because that's why people go into business, right? They're passionate about something. Typically, it's not this stuff that we're talking about. So what we're saying is, and if I could try to summarize and reiterate what we're talking about, be organized, have a plan, and that plan can be very detailed or very loose depending on the nature. If your passion is behind it, you'll be able to present in a very believable way because it's probably a part of who you are. Be organized, be prepared by the time you go in. I don't know what I'm missing. Am I missing, is that sounding pretty good thus far? Okay, let's move forward. Janice, if you want to add, let's talk about all of the options in terms of lending, and when do you know to go with a VC or an angel, family and friends, the crowdsourcing? When do you know? So you know you need money. You know you need to get the packet together. But how do you know where to go for your funding?
Okay, so one of the things that we do is we work with the client, right? So the first thing is asking for help. I met with a lady this week that's been in business for 8 years, and she is right now looking to expand. And her hesitation of going and seeking financing to a bank was she didn't know what questions to ask. She didn't know if she was ready for it. She didn't know if she should go to crowdfunding, ask family or friends. So one of the things we like to do is we like to go ahead and meet with that client, do a financial analysis, and then just walk step by step to see where are they at in their business. Is it time to really expand? Do they understand what's going on in terms of financing? I think that depending on how they start, it dictates what the next step is. So obviously, Linda hit it on the nose saying that VCs are looking for businesses to scale up. The type of client that I look at are usually either startups or they've been established for quite a couple of years, and they're looking either for bank financing or alternate sources of financing. So some of the things that I look at to go ahead and determine where do I refer them to depends on, how does their credit look? How much money are they looking for? What type of collateral do they have? Are they ready to take that next step? For those people that are just starting up, you can't go directly to a bank and ask for financing because there's no history there. So then maybe your source there at that point is either taking a look at crowdfunding or taking a look at alternative sources of financing like microlenders. So that's one. Your banks, obviously, if you're looking for something above $100,000, that's when you go ahead and you turn to a bank to try to get financing. And obviously, it depends on where your business is at. So financials are very important, taking a look at your tax returns. That helps us gauge more or less where you're at. And then obviously, depending on what type of business you're in, really dictates if you're ready for VC and whether or not your business is ready to go to VC.
Microlending. What is the definition of microlending, and what does that mean?
So microlending are loans between $500 to as high as, in our organization, we can go as high as $75,000, right? So for a startup business, it's usually depending on where the funds are coming from. So we have two different pots of money. The city of Chicago allows us to do financing up to $15,000 for startup, $25,000 for established if you're within the city of Chicago. If you're outside of the city of Chicago, we have another loan fund through the state of Illinois that allows us to go up to $75,000. So basically, microloans are usually given to those people that traditionally wouldn't have access to capital through financial institutions.
Thank you. Jolie, you want to talk about the various different types of loans that Wintrust can offer for either startups or established? businesses?
We offer small business through the SBA. We also do lines of credit and term loans, and we do letters of credit. So a lot of times you might have to get a letter of credit to secure your lease for a space. So we can do those. We turn to the SBA when there is not enough collateral. So that's typically when we bring the SBA in with their guarantee. And then we have a couple of different programs for lines of credit and term loans. We have an easy access program that goes up to $75,000, and that's with limited documentation. It's based more on the person's credit score and the global cash flow of the business and the guarantors. And so, but at the end of the day with a bank, they're going to be looking, the first thing they're going to look at is the cash flow of the business and the guarantor, which is typically the owner or owners of the business, credit, and collateral, I would say, in that order.
So does the bank look at historic figures or projections, both? And does it depend on if the company is a startup or established?
It depends. We have done some startup financing at Wintrust, and we look at pro forma income. We also look at my most successful businesses for startups have been businesses where the owner has an outside source of income while they're in their startup period, so that they're not taking money out of their business and taxing that. So we look at that, cash flow. We look at the pro forma. When I look at a pro forma, I'm looking to see what the assumptions are that you use to do your pro forma. So the pro forma numbers have to make sense, and the assumption numbers have to make sense. If somebody hands me just their revenue and expense projections and doesn't tell me how they got to them, then that's not going to work for me. I will hand it back to them and tell them to go see the WBDC for some help. So.
And does a business owner need to know what type of loan they're looking for when they come in? How much information do they need to know when they walk into the bank versus what you can educate and help them along with?
I don't think that that's necessarily the case. I think that it's more important to find the right banker, to find the person who understands all the different products that a bank can offer you and knows about SBA financing, understands all the commercial products that are available, and is able to, point somebody in the right direction. I don't think that, a lot of times a business owner is going to know all the things that are out there, and that your banker should. So.
Thank you. We're going to move on to the relationship after the funds have been distributed. Does anybody have any other comments on the lending products or preparation? So, Kathy, why don't you speak to, once you've decided that a business owner has caught your eye, it's a perfect sweet spot, and the money has now been passed over. What is the relationship like as an angel investor with your owner, with your business owner?
Okay, well, I'll use a real-life example. One of the companies that Linda put up there was Hooray Parade. I'm on that board. I help raise money for them, and it is a startup company that's complex, and it's got some really high-powered folks on the board. So the relationship is you're a lot more involved in that company that had what I would call pre-revenue than I was with Happy Baby, which already had $2 million, where I was an advisor. Now, this company, you're going from ground zero up, like probably many people in this room are doing. So, for instance, I'm helping her staff. There would be a perfect example. She needs a person with these types of skill sets. I'll look across my network and the people that I know and say, I think this person would be a good fit. Or we'll have a board meeting and we'll get involved into very specific things like Hooray Parade is a product that can go in very many, down very many ways. For instance, it goes in big drums and goes into schools. And they can put that in the lunches, and you won't even know that it's in there, but it can eventually count as the vegetable. Or it can go in small packages onto the retail shelf. It's much more expensive, and there's a different margin if it's going onto the retail shelf than if it's going in drums into a school. Or it can go into healthcare facilities, or it can go into military, or it can go into restaurants. It goes into Pizzeria Uno's crust, for instance. So the reason I'm telling you all of this is because there's very many avenues where the product can go, but that also takes time, energy, and effort. Sales, you don't have all those people. You don't have all that money. You have to figure all that out. That's where, depending on how your angels are, we happen to all be sitting, not all of us, I don't want to say it like that. There's like 8 of us that are on her board. And so depending on our area of expertise, we really help. So I would say are much more hands-on in that situation that I was with like a Happy Baby who already had $2 million in revenue going. And I did help in terms of her with more capital, more raising money. And the other thing I wanted to point out to you is this. Once your business gets going, so if I'm an investor in you, and let's just say I put $100,000 in and your business gets going and you need more money in a year, generally you would come back to your original angels and ask them if they want to give you more money. Because if you're going to raise more money, we're going to get diluted if we don't give you more money. So that's why the initial amount is so important. The initial relationship is so important, and that's why I really screen hard to make sure. Because what you said, or somebody said earlier, I think maybe Linda, you said, even with the VCs, you're going to be kind of in bed with them for 7 years. Well, an angel investor, you're going to be with them because they can help you in a lot of different ways. And nothing against banks. My dad was in banking. I was for 45 years, but they're going to put you through a lot more hurdles than an angel investor is. I put people through quite a few hurdles, but not to the extent. She's got a lot more regulation she's got to deal with than I do. So there's the big difference. But there's a lot that we can do for you, but there, like I said early on, there's a lot that we're going to ask as well.
Thank you. Linda, do you want to speak to that as well?
Yeah, the relationship is super important. It's just like any important relationship that you have in your life, and choose it wisely based on that, because you're going to be with these folks for a long time. And so what I did was I chose people that had expertise and experience in areas I did not. I know technology, I know front end, I know back end, I know the industry, the space that we're in. What I didn't know is how to scale a business. We could see that we were going to be growing very, very quickly. We were getting interest. We have an unusual situation where customer demand is pushing us along, and that doesn't happen very often. I see it as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, at least for me. And I've never seen it before. This is my 3rd company. So knowing that and knowing that we were going to need to scale very quickly, how do we do that? How do we bring staff? Exactly. How do we bring staff on? How do we deal with these national relationships? We just became the National Farm-to-School program for Aramark. We just formed a national vendor relationship to Cisco, and we just became a vendor to the USDA. Now, this all happened in the last 6 months. So our revenue is going to see a huge spike this year. And how do we accommodate that, both in terms of staff, in terms of we're operating in different parts of the country, so we've got multi-region stuff going on. And so really, I chose investors that have done that before, and actually, when they giggle and think it's cute, that makes me feel really good.
Great, thank you. So we've kind of walked through the path from the very beginning to, okay, now you have your money and you have this relationship. So rather than go through any more questions and telling stories, the fact that the last panel had a lot of questions about funding, I'm going to open it up to the room and we can ask questions of the experts here on the panel. So who wants to start? Oh, please, someone's got to raise their hand. Yes.
In terms of the guarantors and the owners themselves, does insurance-based policies, does that count towards what the collateral would be, or can you use that to guarantee some of the business? For a loan, or does that help? Does that give you any kind of leverage to say, I have this money, because it's not in stock, so it's safe. It's not, you know what I mean?
So if it's cash value of life insurance, yes, that's like cash. So that's easy for a bank to use as collateral. A lot of times we also, if you have a single owner of a business, we may require life insurance on that owner for the loan too.
Thank you. Anybody else? Questions?
Hi, I'm wondering from Kathy, with all the research that you do as you're meeting potential people to invest in, have you had any real bad decisions, and why do you think the company didn't work out?
Okay, I've been fortunate. Now, I'll tell you, okay, this is just our little stories, right? So, Hooray Purray came to me 2 years prior. She came to my house, and she sat in my living room, and she was all over the place. I couldn't follow her. And I thought, this woman, this is a smart woman. She's a lawyer by trade. She's got an MBA. She comes from a family. Her dad's a doctor. He's an entrepreneur. He started several businesses. I mean, this is a smart cookie. And I'm thinking, wow, I can't follow her. And I think I can follow pretty well. I mean, I'm not Einstein, but I can keep up. And I thought, this is never going to work because I didn't have a really great feeling about that she didn't know what she was going to do. I'm going to put my money into a person. So I said, listen, you've got a really great product. I don't know if you had a bad week or a bad night or what happened, or maybe you needed to have a slug of wine before you came in, but you are all over and I'm a very upfront, in-your-face person, as you could probably tell. So with her, I just said, you got to go back to the drawing board. I can't put you in front of anybody that I know. I can't. I won't jeopardize my network like that. But I do think you have a good product. And she came back almost 2 years later and said, let me try this again, with a much different pitch, with a much different look, pulled much more together. Now, it's still hard. I mean, this isn't going to be an easy slog. But I have to tell you that I've been really fortunate. My Happy Baby investment, she did exactly what she said she was going to do. She grew it. She sold it to Groupe Danone. I got almost 8 times what I put into it. They did a holdback. They do what they call a holdback generally to make sure that throughout the year that, now I actually have another payment due this coming up year, which could exceed what I'm supposed to get if they did hit another hurdle, which knowing her, she probably will because she's a maniac. So I'm trying to think for you if there's something I put in that, I haven't put money in anything that's just failed where I lost it all, but I always think about when I put money in something, I pretend like it's gone, that I'm never seeing it again. So you've got to get angels that really don't have to rely on the money, because you don't want somebody calling you every 4 minutes either. They're going to drive you nuts. I mean, that's the reality of if a person is depending on you to give this money back right away, that's just not, they shouldn't be an angel then. I mean, they've got to come back a little and let you do your thing. But I've been fortunate, I have to say. Now I'm going to probably jinx myself, but that's the reality of it. That's the truth.
How does one find an angel investor?
Well, how it happened for me was people knew me from business, and I'm really big on, I think I told you, a lot of women's type of things. And so one person knows one person and knows another person, and they'll say, I think you should meet this person. So a lot of word of mouth, actually. And then I think you should meet Kathy, and she really understands food, and see what she has to say about it, if she thinks it'll work or won't work. And because I've been kind of on all sides, I sat on a very large board. Covidian's board is, $22 billion market cap. So I was on the board of directors side. I was executive in a Fortune 36 company. And I started from the bottom. I started out as a bagger at Jewel. So I kind of knew the whole enchilada. So I think people just thought, okay, she's gonna tell it to you straight. And if I don't know, I don't know anything about your technology. I am the world's worst on technology. People have pitched me on technology investments. I'm going back away from me. I don't know what you're even talking about. So I'm much better in the food space. So that's kind of how I roll with that.
Any other questions? Up all the way in the back.
Kind of piggybacks your last question. So I have a startup with my business partner who's not here today, and we're at this point right now where we think we're ready to pitch in front of a group of investors. Is there it's a question that I asked earlier, but I had to save it for this time. Are there any opportunities in Evanston and Chicago? I'm kind of thinking Shark Tank, but in Chicago. I went to the event last night in Evanston, but is there something that you guys can offer us.
I have been to a couple of events like that. We've not participated in them. I think that you can get my card and I can give you some information afterwards, because there are quite a few of them. And if you get on LinkedIn, you can get invitations to them all the time. But we don't participate in them quite a bit, so.
Did you want to make mention, Chair?
Yeah, I'm a member of two angel investment groups. One is Hyde Park Angels, which is mainly tech. It's not women. It's mainly tech. And the other one is Sustainable Local Food Investment Group. It's a group of 25 angel investors. We've looked at 120 companies maybe, and we've invested in 7. We take applications. There are a lot of different angel investment groups out there. I don't know if you look online. I don't know. How do you, I don't know how people find us exactly, but, if you Google around, you'll find us. But, I'd just like to follow on what Kathy was saying about talking to an angel investment group or an angel even individually. Business plans change. I've invested in, over a dozen companies. Most of the companies have changed pretty dramatically from the time I invested through their life. What we invest in mostly is the entrepreneur. We love Linda because she really understood what she was talking about, even if you didn't know where it would go. We knew that you understood your technology, and we knew that you understood what you didn't know. And when you're in a new space, when you're opening something new, you often don't know where it's going to go. When we want to see a business plan, it's not necessarily all the numbers, because we know you don't know what the numbers are going to be. We want to see that you've thought it through and you understand where the holes are and where you might need to tack one direction or another. And we just want to make sure that you've thought through the problem. When you deal with an angel investor, as Kathy said, it's really like a marriage. The asking for money is like dating. I would ask everybody for money. Practice on your grandmother, practice on your parents. Just ask them to lend an ear and ask questions and let you know where they see holes in your plan. But just keep going, and then understand that it's going to be a long relationship with whoever gives you money.
Thank you. Thank you.
Actually, I just have a response for you. Depending on what space you work in, there is an email group called Build Chicago. They list all the time different opportunities for, there's a lot of launch competitions. Those may be good ones, particularly if you're early on and you're trying to practice a bit. Northwestern, I know, has one. I don't know when it is. There's I think a couple that they do each year. I don't remember exactly what space they're in. Also, depending on if you're in more of a tech, if you're in a technology space, Tech Week Chicago sponsors one where they basically have a quick starter thing, and they have a whole bunch of people do that. I think your group was actually, there was a member from your group there. So yeah, there's a lot of really good ones out there, but I would definitely check out Build Chicago because there's a lot of good listings there.
Thank you.
Hi. How does this whole dynamic change when you're talking about more of a socially minded, not that a lot of great businesses aren't, but nowadays there are a lot of kind of double bottom lines and anything from a nonprofit or socially minded investment. How do those types of organizations get funding?
We do lend to not-for-profits, and we look at them like we would a business. So we want to look at their cash flow, and we look at their collateral. The thing that's pretty much, I'm trying to think, I guess the major difference is we can't use SBA lending for not-for-profits. They're not eligible for it. So we have to go through just bank lending. And so we're going to look at the collateral, and typically that's accounts receivable or real estate, usually.
Or even an organization that's not necessarily a not-for-profit, but maybe is going to see as great of a return because of their social mission.
We're still going to look to see that they have cash flow to repay the loan. So that at the end of the day, whether how socially minded they are, we still want to make sure that we're not lending them more money than they can pay us back, because we don't ever want to put somebody in that position. So.
I have a comment about that. There's a lot of hybrid businesses out there right now, and we're actually one of them. We're an LLC, but we have a very strong social mission. I mean, we bring food off of farms, so we help the agricultural community, and we bring it into school districts, particularly where there's a lot of low-income or free and reduced lunch kids. And so because of that, we've been able to get grants from the USDA. So I think that if you have a social mission, whether you're a 501c3 or you're a hybrid, and there's plenty of ways to set up the company as a hybrid, you can really look to the government to help you out. We were surprised as an LLC that they were willing to help us, and they were. And it's a wonderful thing, except for Ann, who has to do the reporting and everything. But that's something to look into is government funding. What's really nice is, I mean, there's a lot of paperwork, but you don't have to pay back. So that's great.
Any other questions? Right on time. So thank you very much. Please, a nice round of applause for our panel. Thank you.